While Americans are still tapping credit cards and waiting for the receipt to print, Chinese hospital patients are walking into facilities that have already pre-routed their entire visit before they stepped through the door. Picture a lobby the size of an airport terminal, thousands of people moving through it, and somehow no lines, not managed lines, not orderly queues snaking around rope barriers, no lines at all, because every appointment, every lab test, every prescription pickup has been sequenced digitally before the patient even left home. You open an app, your entire visit is mapped end to end, and the building is already waiting for you. Reports suggest that some of China's top-tier hospitals handle patient volumes that would overwhelm entire Western hospital networks, and they're doing it every single day. While UK patients are averaging multi-week waits just to see a general practitioner, a patient in Shanghai is completing registration, consultation, blood work, and pharmacy pickup in a single frictionless loop without stopping at a single desk. And here's the part that sounds made up but isn't. The app doesn't just book your appointment, it pre-assigns your floor, your room, and your parking spot based on real-time occupancy across the entire building. The hospital isn't reacting to you. It already knew you were coming. You think that's impressive? Wait. Picture a commuter approaching a metro gate during peak rush hour. No fumbling for a card, no app to unlock. The gate reads their face in a fraction of a second, opens and closes before the next person is even close. The train arrives. Platform screens display live carriage loading data so passengers distribute themselves before the doors open. Doors close. Train gone. Widely documented across multiple Chinese cities, metro systems operate at headway intervals, the gap between trains, that make the London Underground look like a rural bus schedule. And while Western transit agencies are still celebrating contactless payment as a modern achievement, China has already moved past the card entirely. But here's where it gets crazy. Some stations are reportedly adjusting train frequency in real time based on crowd density detected by platform sensors embedded in the floor and ceiling. No dispatcher making that call, no human decision involved. The system decides. In the time it takes a New York commuter to swipe a MetroCard that may or may not work on the first try, a passenger in Shenzhen has already boarded, found a seat, and pulled out their phone. China doesn't mess around, and nowhere is that more obvious than what happened to money itself. A roadside vegetable stall in rural Sichuan. The vendor is 60 years old. She has never owned a bank account in her life. Stuck to the front of her wooden cart is a laminated square of paper with a QR code printed on it. A customer holds up their phone. Scan, transaction complete. No terminal, no card reader, no cash changing hands, no bank required. This is actually happening right now across hundreds of millions of transactions every single day. Reports suggest mobile payment volumes in China operate at a scale that dwarfs the combined totals of the United States and Europe. And the reach isn't confined to cities or tech-savvy demographics. The system was specifically designed to include people that traditional banking infrastructure left completely behind. And the detail that makes Western fintech look genuinely embarrassed. Elderly users who never learned to read are navigating the entire platform by voice. The UX wasn't designed around an urban millennial with 3 apps on their home screen. It was designed around a grandmother in a mountain village who just wants to sell vegetables. Western financial inclusion initiatives have been running for a decade. China solved it with a laminated card. But here's where it gets craziest, because we are just getting started on the problems China quietly fixed that Western cities don't even realize are broken. The last mile of delivery. Economists have called it an unsolvable cost problem for years. China reframed it as an infrastructure problem and then built the infrastructure. Picture a residential building lobby late at night. No delivery person, no package left exposed on a doorstep, hoping no one walks past. A wheeled robot rolls in through a designated access bay, approaches a wall of smart lockers, docks, deposits the package, sends a notification to the recipient's phone, and reverses silently back out. The locker lights up green. The resident comes down whenever they're ready, scans their phone, the door opens, package collected. Widely documented networks of unmanned delivery lockers and autonomous ground robots are making same-day delivery a default expectation in neighborhoods across Chinese cities, not a premium tier you pay extra for. While Amazon is still marketing two-day shipping as a competitive advantage, China already lapped it, and reports suggest some pilot programs are now testing vertical delivery for high-rise buildings. The package doesn't travel through the lobby, up the elevator, and down the corridor. It goes up the outside of the building. This is not a concept. This is not a TED Talk. This is happening right now. You think customer service is just a thing you suffer through? In China, it has become a genuine competitive weapon. Here is the scenario. You order something online, it arrives defective. In the West, you know exactly what happens next. You find the buried returns page. You fill in a form, you wait on hold, you get transferred, you argue with someone reading from a script, you escalate, you wait another week. In China, you take a screenshot of the defective item, send it to the merchant's chat interface, and receive a full refund confirmation before you have finished typing your complaint. Reports suggest that the top e-commerce platforms have restructured their entire incentive systems so that merchants compete on after-sale experience with the same intensity they compete on price. The majority of standard disputes are reportedly resolved algorithmically. No human agent, minutes, not days. But the layer that genuinely sounds like science fiction, AI service agents that retain your full purchase history, recognize your previous complaint patterns, and adjust their communication style to match yours. It does not feel like a bot. It feels like talking to someone who actually knows you and actually wants to fix the problem. So while UK consumers average over 2 weeks to resolve a complaint and US airline refund timelines are measured in months, China made good service the floor. Delivering bad service is now the competitive disadvantage. Wait, because China did not just optimize the services inside buildings, it optimized the buildings themselves. Imagine a residential compound that houses more people than a small western town. The gates open automatically when a resident approaches. Unknown visitors are logged and flagged. Package rooms self-sort incoming deliveries. You notice a broken streetlight, report it via app, and get a repair confirmation with a specific timestamp within the hour. Utility payments, maintenance requests, neighbor disputes, one platform handles all of it. This is widely documented across China's major cities. Residential management applications that have turned neighborhood administration into something that actually functions without meetings, arguments, or lost paperwork. And embedded in the walls, the corridors, the shared green spaces, sensors continuously measuring air quality, temperature anomalies, and structural data. A health alert about elevated particulate matter in your district arrives on your phone before you have decided whether to open the window this morning. The neighborhood is not being managed by a committee arguing at a poorly attended monthly meeting. The neighborhood is managing itself, and it is doing it better. Because what happens when you take that logic and apply it not to an existing neighborhood, but to an entire city being built from nothing? Not renovated, not expanded, built completely. From an empty field, reports suggest China has completed full urban development projects with functioning metro lines, hospitals, schools, parks, and commercial districts already operational, at timelines that Western urban planners openly describe as physically impossible to replicate. The UK's HS2 high-speed rail project was announced in 2009 and remains unfinished. California's bullet train was approved by voters in 2008 and has not carried a single passenger. In that same stretch of time, China reportedly built hundreds of kilometers of high-speed rail, dozens of new airports, and multiple entire cities, some of them constructed preemptively, with all infrastructure in place before the first resident moved in, not retrofitted after people arrived, pre-built in anticipation, and the new cities specifically designed to absorb overflow from overcrowded megacities. They worked. Populations shifted, pressure redistributed. As designed, this is actually happening right now, and most of the infrastructure making it possible is invisible because it is underground. Picture a utility worker descending into a tunnel wide enough to drive a truck through comfortably. running along both walls, electrical cables, fiber optic lines, water pipes, gas lines, all co-managed in a single shared corridor by a single operations team. In Western cities, the same street gets torn up over and over, once for each utility, because each one was laid independently across different decades by different agencies with different standards. Widely documented across hundreds of kilometers beneath major Chinese cities, shared utility corridors were built preemptively, before demand required them. Sensor arrays inside monitor pressure, temperature, and electrical load around the clock. A pressure drop detected in one section triggers inspection deployment before it ever surfaces as a burst water main flooding a city street at rush hour. In London, construction workers still routinely discover Victorian-era pipes when digging for new projects. In New York, segments of water main infrastructure date back to the 19th century. China built for the next 100 years before finishing the current one. Above those tunnels, an intersection with no traffic cop, no fixed signal timing, and no gridlock. Vehicles and pedestrians moving in overlapping, intersecting waves that somehow do not collide, because the intersection is not being managed by a human being or a timer set 3 years ago. It is being orchestrated in real time by an AI system treating the entire road network as a single dynamic object, adjusting every signal continuously based on live vehicle density, pedestrian flow, weather conditions, and time patterns it has learned over months of operation. Reports suggest some pilot programs have achieved measurable reductions in average commute time across millions of daily trips without adding a single new lane of road. Emergency vehicles do not navigate through traffic. The traffic clears for them, citywide, before the ambulance has even activated its lights. Most Western cities are still running traffic signals on fixed timers programmed years ago. Los Angeles has had a smart signals initiative sitting in pilot phase for over a decade. China built the system, deployed it at scale, and let it start learning. It reportedly improves measurably every month without a single line of new code being written. Here is the part that genuinely makes no sense until you sit with it. An elderly woman in a rural village, hours from the nearest hospital, straps on a device the size of a watch. It reads her blood pressure, oxygen saturation, and ECG simultaneously and transmits the data to a physician platform. A cardiologist 800 kilometers away reviews her results in real time, asks follow-up questions over video, and sends a prescription to the nearest drone delivery point. Widely documented telehealth infrastructure in China is connecting specialist physicians to patients in locations that have never had a clinic, a pharmacy, or a medical professional of any kind within reasonable distance. Reports suggest these platforms handle consultation volumes that dwarf entire European national health systems, and the AI pre-screening layer means the specialist only ever sees the cases the system has already assessed as requiring human judgment. A rural patient in the United Kingdom waits 18 months for a specialist referral. A rural patient in the United States skips care entirely because the nearest relevant doctor is 4 hours away and does not take their insurance. In China, the mountain got the cardiologist. The cardiologist did not have to move. What if every single student, regardless of where they were born, what province they grew up in, or what their parents earned, had access to a tutor that knew exactly where they were struggling, adapted its entire teaching method to their specific learning pattern, and remembered everything from every previous session before the next one began? Reports suggest AI-powered learning platforms in China are operating at scales larger than the entire K-12 student population of the United States, and they are not just delivering adaptive quizzes. They are delivering adaptive pedagogy. The teaching method itself changes based on what the platform has learned about how this specific child learns. It identifies the precise misconception causing a wrong answer. Then it teaches to that misconception directly. A child in a rural village in western China logs in and gets a tutor that speaks her local dialect and has reviewed her last 200 exercises before saying a word. Her teacher opens a dashboard the night before class that shows exactly which 3 concepts the class collectively missed this week, so she walks in already knowing what needs to be retaught. Private tutoring in the United States costs upward of $100 an hour and is available primarily to families who can already afford it. China industrialized access to it. And this is not coming in 2030. And the last one, the one Western media gets almost completely wrong every single time it tries to explain it. Picture a debtor, someone under a court order to repay money, who chose not to, and who then tries to purchase a business class train ticket. The ticket is declined. That is the restriction. His children's school enrollment is completely untouched. His bank account functions normally. His access to healthcare is unaffected. Because what is widely documented in China is not a single omniscient score silently rating every citizen's thoughts and behaviors in real time. It is a collection of sector-specific systems, closer in structure to Western credit bureaus, professional licensing enforcement bodies, and court judgment registries than to anything from a dystopian film. Reports suggest the documented systems target specific high-stakes behaviors: unpaid court-ordered debts, serious food safety violations, financial fraud, professional misconduct with documented victims. A contractor who abandons a job and vanishes finds the record flagged when bidding for the next contract. A restaurant that fails repeated health inspections loses its listing on delivery platforms. Now compare that honestly to Western credit scoring, a system that penalizes people financially for the act of being poor, that attaches medical debt to credit files in ways that follow people for years, that has no meaningful rehabilitation pathway built in. China's documented systems have one. Fulfill the court order, repay the debt. The restriction lifts. It is not a perfect system. It is not a simple one. But the off-ramp, the documented functional way out, is something Western financial infrastructure spent a century failing to build. China built it.